New Zealand's education debate is not really a fight over whether the achievement gap, the post-COVID attendance collapse, the ECE access gap, and the school-to-work cliff are real problems all sides accept they are. It is a fight over the binding constraint and therefore the lever, whether to pour more equity-weighted money into high-deprivation schools, get students back through the door, build out early childhood and Maori medium provision, or steer the secondary and tertiary system toward vocational and labour market outcomes. Crucially, almost every camp here is a service delivery or resourcing reform without a personal stake or referendum anchor, which the durability rulebook flags as the churn-prone end of the spectrum. The one approach that fuses with identity, kaupapa Maori, and the ones that hand families a named entitlement, free ECE hours, are the likeliest to stick. Equity-weighted school resourcing. The achievement gap is fundamentally a resourcing gap. The decile/equity index formula gives high-need schools more per pupil, but not nearly enough to cover the true cost of educating students with multiple disadvantages. Raise per pupil funding sharply in decile 1-3 schools, ring-fenced to teachers, smaller classes and specialist literacy/numeracy support. Its flagship moves are increase operational/per pupil funding for decile 1-3 schools by 50% with allocation ring-fenced to literacy-numeracy staff and class size reduction. Deploy specialist literacy and numeracy coaches and 1:15 equity index teacher ratios in the lowest decile schools. Teacher retention incentives, salary supplements, rental/housing assistance for experienced teachers committing 3+ years in high-need schools. The central tension, a sustained fiscal commitment that is hard to protect across political cycles and is contested by middle decile schools who perceive themselves as disadvantaged, and resourcing alone does nothing for the 40% of students not actually attending, so a well-funded school can still fail to move the metric. This has been partly tried. NZ has always funded by need decile system, then the equity index that succeeded it in 2023, so equity weighting itself is the durable baseline. But the scale of uplift this camp wants has never been delivered. Funding rounds rise and fall with the fiscal cycle, the structural experienced teacher shortage in high deprivation areas is untouched, and the Maori/non-Maori NC Level 2 gap has sat at 10-20 points for decades despite targeted programs. The wrapper, a needs-based formula, is durable, the dollar quantum oscillates, and the gap has not moved. Its durability outlook is rated likely contested, attendance recovery and re-engagement. No classroom investment reaches a student who isn't there, and post-COVID persistent absence roughly doubled to 40% in high deprivation Auckland. Restoring the attendance norm is the prior emergency. Attendance officers, in-school social workers and family liaison, plus flexible re-engagement programs for students who have already left mainstream. Its flagship moves are fund attendance officers and in-school social workers across decile 1-3 secondary schools with a rapid response trigger, e.g., within 3 days of 5 days absence, family school liaison workers and trauma-informed restorative practice replacing punitive suspension, flexible re-engagement hubs offering accredited NC in non-traditional settings for persistently absent students. The central tension, enforcement without addressing the causes of absence, housing instability, health, family harm, school safety, is counterproductive and can deepen alienation. Meanwhile, alternative education quality varies widely, with some programs functioning as holding pens rather than genuine pathways back to learning or work. This has been partly tried. NZ has cycled through attendance service models for years. The current coalition has made attendance a headline target with daily data, stand-down/escalation rules, and an attendance action plan. Tools and targets keep being relabeled, better public services to well-being to government targets, which breaks the data series. The structural drivers housing, poverty, the eroded post-COVID norm are largely outside the school gate, so the metric has been slow to recover despite the activity. Its durability outlook is rated likely contested. Universal high-quality early childhood education. ECE is the highest return educational investment, claimed $7-12 long-run return per dollar, but 20 hours free is only nominally universal cost top-ups, supply gaps, transport and cultural fit, lock out low-income families. Extend genuinely free, high-quality hours from infancy in high-deprivation areas, fund quality uplift to 100% qualified teacher ratios, and underpin it with ECE teacher pay parity. A contested sub-debate runs between centre-based universal quality and a parent choice strand, that would extend full subsidy to whanau/home-based care. Its flagship moves are extend 20 hours free to 40 hours, and to under 3s in high deprivation areas, capped at licensed providers meeting qualified teacher ratios, quality uplift grants ring-fenced to qualified teacher recruitment/retention in the lowest quality centres, plus transport assistance, complete ECE teacher, pay parity with primary teaching, and fund degree training with loan forgiveness for in-service teachers. The central tension: the workforce shortage caps supply expansion regardless of subsidy, and pay parity needs national legislation and significant Crown money. Extending free hours means either capping provider fees, resisted by centres reliant on top-ups, or large ongoing subsidy. A live internal split, mandating centre-based provision as the only subsidised route, disadvantages Maori/Pacific families whose care preferences include extended family, but home-based quality is harder to assure. This has been partly tried. Free ECE hours are an entrenched, broadly popular entitlement trimmed and re-rated at the margin but never abolished, exactly like a personal stake benefit families can name. Pay parity funding has been partially advanced but not fully landed and is fiscally exposed each budget. The deepest expansion, free hours from infancy, full pay parity, closing the supply/workforce gap, remains untried at scale, and the participation gap in low-income communities persists. Its durability outlook is rated likely durable. Kaupapa Maori and Maori medium education expansion. The Maori achievement gap survives controlling for deprivation because mainstream schooling was built around a Pakeha cultural frame. Kura Kaupapa and Kohanga Reo consistently produce stronger Maori outcomes. Expand Te Reo immersion and Kaupapa Maori schooling, New Kura, bilingual streams, Kohanga Reo, and build the Kayako pipeline to staff them. Its flagship moves are establish New Kura Kaupapa and Kohanga Reo in high Maori population areas via ministry capital grants, bilingual/Te Reo class streams across mainstream primary schools, Te Reo and Kayako teacher training scholarships and recognised Maori/Pacific cultural training pathways. The central tension: qualified Kayako supply is severely constrained, so expansion outruns the teacher pipeline. Kura capital competes with mainstream roles. The deeper political tension is the values cleavage between culturally distinct Maori medium provision and an equal/uniform schooling framing pushed by the centre-right. This has been tried. Maori medium education is long established and has grown across successive governments. The Maori Language Act 1987 conferred status without imposing organised costs and was later expanded. Provision has steadily increased rather than being torn down. The binding constraint has consistently been Kayako supply, not political will to abolish, so the sector grows in fits tied to teacher availability and capital, and the achievement gap narrows for participants, but the cohort remains a minority of Maori learners. Its durability outlook is rated likely durable. Vocational and trades pathway investment vs academic excellence. Two camps over the same distribution. The vocational camp argues the secondary system overinvests in university pathways and underbuilds trades, so it would fund dual enrollment with ITPs, school-based apprenticeships, gateway/trades academies, and employer partnerships to give non-academic students a structured route to work. The academic excellence camp counters that the gap is an attainment gap, not a pathways gap, and would fund tutoring, mentoring and university access, bridging, programs so Maori/Pacific students aren't channeled out of university. Its flagship moves are vocational, fund dual ITP enrollment, expand gateway and trades academies across decile 1-5 schools with employer placements and completion incentives. Vocational, NC vocational pathway endorsement parity with academic endorsements. Academic, fund near-peer NC tutoring and expand university bridging/access programs, e.g. Manawa Aho, across low-decile schools. The central tension, the central trade-off is tracking VS access, vocational streaming risks entrenching class/ethnic divisions by funneling Maori and Pacific students into lower status routes, while academic-only investment abandons the third who never reach NCL2 to NEET status. The problem analysis calls the opposition partly false. Both serve different parts of the distribution, but funding and prestige are fought over as if it were zero-sum. ITP capacity is also constrained in exactly the high-demand trades dual enrollment needs. This has been tried. Vocational pathways have been repeatedly tried and repeatedly restructured. Gateway and trades academies persist, but the institutional wrapper churns hard. The 16 polytechnics were merged into Te Pukenga in 2020, and that mega merger is being unwound from 2024. This is the rulebook's machinery of government pattern in action. The org chart cycles consolidate, then deconsolidate, while NEET rates and the trade supply problem move little. Academic access programs are smaller, grant-funded, and survive quietly, but reach a fraction of the cohort. Its durability outlook is rated likely contested. Labour market aligned vs cost barrier tertiary. Two competing diagnoses of the tertiary problem. The alignment camp, centre-right lean, says funding should follow labour market need performance-based funding weighted to completion and employment in shortage fields. Health, trades, engineering, digital, employer-designed micro-credentials, skills accords, and published wage outcome data. The cost barrier camp, centre-left lean, says the real constraint is financial living and housing costs force study time into paid work, so it would add targeted allowance supplements, transport subsidies, accommodation guarantees and completion bursaries on top of fees-free. Its flagship moves are alignment, weight TEC/performance-based funding to completion and employment in high-shortage fields, fund employer co-designed micro-credentials and regional skills accords. Alignment, publish field of study employment and wage outcome data to steer enrollment. Cost barrier, city/region cost of living allowance supplements, tertiary transport subsidies, first-year accommodation guarantees and targeted completion bursaries for low-income/Maori/Pacific students. The central tension, outcome-weighted funding may starve long-cycle and high Maori/Pacific enrollment fields and chase lagging labour market signals. Today's surplus is tomorrow's shortage. Cost support treats the symptom, financial stress, not the cause, housing unaffordability, and if made city-specific, creates contestable geographic disparities. Underneath, a left/right split over whether tertiary's job is workforce supply or equitable opportunity. This has been tried. Both strands have been tried in part. Outcome/performance funding levers exist, PBRF, completion-linked funding, and successive governments adjust the weightings rather than abolish them. On the cost side, Labour's flagship fees-free policy, 2018, was scaled back from 3 years aspired to first year, with later moves to final year a classic single-party signature subsidy that the next government trims. Student allowance and accommodation support persist as inherited baselines. Neither diagnosis has closed the Maori/Pacific completion gap. Its durability outlook is rated likely contested.